The space race, how the USA and USSR battled to reach the moon. During the second half of the 20th century, the world witnessed one of the most intense and thrilling rivalries in history, the space race. A silent but grand duel between two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, USSR, that turned the sky into a symbolic battleground. Not with weapons, but with rockets, satellites, and finally, with humans landing on the moon. But how did this race begin? And why was it so important to be first? The beginning of the race, Cold War and technology. After the end of World War II, the USA and USSR emerged as the two great victors and rivals. With opposing ideologies, capitalism versus communism, both nations entered a global competition for influence, power, and prestige. This indirect conflict became known as the Cold War. While they didn't face each other in traditional wars, they competed in all other areas: weapons, economy, culture, and especially technology. The race for space was the ultimate proof of who had the most advanced science and, therefore, the control over humanity's future. Sputnik, the first Soviet strike. On October 4th, 1957, the USSR shocked the world by launching Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite to orbit Earth. An object the size of a beach ball that transmitted radio signals, simple, yet enough to shake the USA. It was a shock. For the first time, humanity had placed something man-made into space, and it wasn't the Americans. Sputnik officially kicked off the space race, with the USA at a disadvantage. A few months later, in November, the Soviets launched Sputnik 2 with the dog Laika aboard, the first living being to orbit the planet. Sadly, Laika didn't survive the trip, but her mission marked another major milestone. Gagarin, the first man in space. The most impactful turning point came on April 12, 1961, when Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human to travel into space. Aboard the Vostok 1 spacecraft, Gagarin completed one orbit around Earth in just 108 minutes. With the phrase, "The Earth is blue," he entered history as a global hero. Once again, the USA was behind and under pressure. The American response, Mercury and Gemini programs. The US government, led by John F. Kennedy, knew it had to respond quickly. In a famous 1961 speech, Kennedy issued a bold challenge. "We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard." Thus was born the Apollo program, following the Mercury and Gemini programs focused on developing the technology necessary for a manned moon mission. These programs were essential to test everything from the human body's response in orbit to docking procedures, lunar landing simulations, and atmospheric re-entry. The giant leap, Apollo 11. Finally, on July 16, 1969, the Apollo 11 mission was launched from Florida with 3 astronauts: Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. 4 days later, on July 20th, the lunar module Eagle landed on the moon's surface. Neil Armstrong descended first, delivering the famous line, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." Buzz Aldrin joined him a few minutes later, while Michael Collins remained in orbit aboard the command module. The mission was an absolute success. The USA had won the race to the moon. Technology, propaganda, and parallel achievements. The space race wasn't just about heroic symbols. Both sides achieved remarkable feats over the decades. The USSR was the first to launch a satellite, the first living being, the first man, and the first woman, Valentina Tereshkova, into space. The USA triumphed in the moon mission and developed technologies that are now used in computers, satellites, telecommunications, and even medicine. The competition also had a strong ideological element. Each achievement served as propaganda to demonstrate the superiority of each country's political and scientific systems. The end of the race and cooperation. Over time, the enormous costs and political changes slowed down the space race. The USSR never made it to the moon, but continued sending unmanned probes and spacecraft. The USA carried on with the Apollo program until 1972, completing a total of 6 lunar landings. From the 1970s onward, the two countries began to cooperate instead of compete. In 1975, the Apollo-Soyuz missions marked the first space meeting between American astronauts and Soviet cosmonauts. Later came projects like the International Space Station, ISS, involving participation from multiple nations, including the former rivals. The legacy of the space race. The space race changed the world. It accelerated advances in technology, communication, meteorology, engineering, and even materials science. More than that, it sparked fascination with the unknown. It was a chapter in human history where the sky was no longer the limit. The stars were. Even today, with new races emerging between countries like China, India, and private companies like SpaceX, that old rivalry between the USA and USSR continues to inspire generations to look up and ask, what's next?